the Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast, the official podcast of Football Italia. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima Tavali. On today's show we will react to the weekend Serie A action. Atalanta stay top as super sub Nicolo Zaniolo and a Marco Carnesecchi goalkeeping masterclass creates history for Atalanta against Cagliari, a 10th Serie A win in a row, the first time in their history. Napoli come from behind to beat Udinese to stay in touch with Atalanta. Great second half performance. But both Juventus and Milan are in crisis. Juventus go from beating Man City to drawing at home against bottom of the league Venezia in the space of 3 days. Are Juventus and Thiago Motta now out of excuses? Milan, things are even worse. They can only draw 0-0 at home to Patrick Vieira's Genoa. Should we start asking the question about Paulo Fonseca being replaced? And also, what about the owners and Jerry Cardinale with Milan fans calling for him to sell the club? A bad day for Roma too, as there was a Hollywood ending for Como in front of Hollywood royalty. And Fiorentina's fantastic run also comes to an end. We'll have our usual Baggio, Premface and Serie Ass of the week at the end too. For all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode that we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all of our content that we do throughout the week, including a weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday where we answer all of the questions from our patrons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $2.99 a month plus VAT. You can also be a paid subscriber on Spotify. Provide the link in the description. It's the same price and same terms. And for all of you that do listen on Spotify, Apple and iTunes podcasts, we really appreciate if you give us a 5-star rating. Also, do subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We produce some content there that you can't get elsewhere. All of that really helps us to grow and do more content for you guys. Okay, let's get into today's show. So we'll start off first with Juventus, then we'll move on to Milan and the crises at these two great clubs. Juve to start with. Juventus somehow, go from beating Manchester City, the Premier League champions, in the space of 3 days. They go and draw at home to Venezia, only just as well with a 94th minute equaliser. It's an embarrassing result and performance, and I think we've got to the stage now where Juventus are out of excuses, and Thiago Motta is out of excuses. He wasn't there on the bench, but that's no excuse, of course. Regardless of the circumstances and all the injuries, the injury crisis, if you draw and nearly lose at home to the bottom of the league, and you create as little as you did, the overall performance being as bad as it was as well, then you can't use the excuses that we've spoken about. It's you're out of excuses. There's no excuse for failing to beat this Venezia team and for playing as badly as Juventus played in this game against Venezia. There's no more excuses now. It's as simple as that. It was a terrible performance, and we're now looking at the very real possibility of Juventus not getting into the Champions League next season. They may need another bailout and another cash injection from Exor in January to somehow fund a January transfer market with a budget that they don't have, because the way that Juventus are playing, Juventus aren't going to get into the top 4 playing like they have in the last 2 months. They are falling further and further behind the teams at the top, and this game showed again that this is a team that isn't playing well enough to even beat these smaller teams like Venezia, like Lecce the week before, like Cagliari, like Empoli. Juventus are consistently failing to beat these teams and consistently failing to to deserve to beat many of these teams as well. So out of excuses now. That's the simple message I have.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised, given that this is so far, this kind of falls in line with everything we've seen from Juve under Thiago Motta so far. I mean, we had one of our patrons send in some stats where we're basically comparing Juventus in the Serie A after 15 games this season with the last. Allegri 36, Motta 27. Allegri 11 wins, Motta 6. Allegri 3 draws, Motta 9. Allegri 1 loss, Motta 0. Goals scored, Allegri 32, Motta 24. Goals conceded, Allegri 14, Motta 15. Goal difference plus 18 Allegri, plus 9 Motta. XG 28.7 Allegri, 25.5 Motta. XGA 17.3 Allegri, 18.1 Motta. And the position, of course, Allegri second, Motta sixth. I mean,
which season's this? Last season?
Yeah, 23-24.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest with you, Nima. I don't want to start another argument. I don't even want to talk about Allegri. We've done.
No,
that
I'm not talking about Allegri. I'm comparing Juve this year with this season.
Well, yeah, listen. I think
if the numbers are there, you can't just say,
I think if we're going to compare Motta with Allegri, we compare him with Allegri's first season back at Juve, not last season.
No,
no,
we don't.
Well, yeah,
we
compare
compare last season with this season. Then
I don't think so, because that's the third season of Allegri. If we're going to compare with Allegri, we compare him with the first season. Last season's irrelevant, and to be honest with you, I think it's a bit boring now. Let's just focus on Motta and what he's doing wrong.
I did do that. If you allow me
but you just brought in another comparison with Allegri, and we did it for half an hour.
Because it's relevant, and all the denial of relevancy because you don't like that comparison doesn't make that comparison.
No, we spent. What I'm saying is, we spent half an hour doing it on Thursday, and we've done it to death. Let's not do it. Let's not do it again. Let's not do it again now. If you want to do it, if you want to do it, Nima, do it with the first season, because that is more relevant, not the third season of Allegri.
It's absolutely not.
Why would the third season of Allegri with the first season of Motta in a new project with a completely new team? You would start that with a new project under Allegri in the first season, not the third season. I think it's irrelevant, to be honest.
No, it's not irrelevant. It absolutely is not relevant. We're not talking. We can do that as well if you want to compare the first season with the third season and so on and so forth.
Well, let's do that. But can we have to talk about Allegri all the time?
If you stop,
it's just boring now. We've done it on Thursday, Nima. The obsession with Allegri just needs to end.
No, it's not an obsession with an Allegri.
Can we just talk about Motta? We're starting.
It's a relevant comparison. Your disconnect, intellectual disconnect of the matter notwithstanding. But the point of the matter is that this has been a long time coming, and it's been like this because Juventus don't create enough. Juventus can't seem to, when they play against teams, what we said, if you remember, what I said after the City game was that I finally saw something from Juve that I liked.
And I said I didn't like it.
Well, I know you didn't.
Yeah.
But that just goes to show that this Juventus, and that this is a continuation of previous Juventuses, that they don't have an attacking identity, especially against smaller teams when they are the ones that are supposed to create and build something, when they are the ones that are supposed to have the initiative. They're not. They're completely unable to do it. And the comparison I was making is simply that last season they got the results in the beginning, then it kind of fell off. This season they're not getting the results at all. However, and he is out of excuses because he's not getting the most out of these players, especially if you look at the investment made. The midfield has been completely revamped, and still it's not offering much. And if we're perfectly honest, they were lucky to get a point. Because there's no way on earth that is a penalty. It's a ridiculous decision, and they got away with one there. So they probably would have lost. That would have been their first loss in the Serie A under Motta against Venezia, one of the worst teams in the Serie A, if not the worst team in Serie A. bottom of the table.
Yeah, they are lucky. Both their goals come from a set piece and from a penalty. And if you look at, again, to bring it back to the chances created and the XG, their total XG in the first half. I thought the first half was worse than the second half. By the way, even though Juventus were 1-0 up at half time, I thought the first half was embarrassing. First half XG, if you take away Gatti's goal off a corner, was 0.12 against the Venezia team who had the second worst defensive record in the league, going into second most goals conceded in the league going into the game. Total XG in the entire game, if you take away the corner goal and the penalty goal, a penalty goal is 0.8 XG generally. A total XG of 0.47. So you're creating 0.47, let's say, in the game, taking away that corner goal and that penalty goal. It's just there are no excuses, regardless of all the players out and everything else. I mean, I broke down on Thursday's show tactically and structurally where I think it's going wrong. This was after the win against Man City, where I said I wasn't impressed by the attacking performance, and I think they create the chances they did create didn't come from any kind of structure or attacking patterns. It came from basically just basic counter-attacking. Simple as that. Sorry, I've got something stuck in my throat this morning. But they moved the ball, and what I said on Thursday's show was that a couple of things was one, that the passes from the midfielders are generally always sideways and backwards, and also there's never any players that ever run in front of the ball and make runs forward, and so they've got nowhere to go once they got to the halfway line. What we've seen now, and I think it's becoming very clear with Motta's football, is they move the ball so slow the whole game. It's just so slow. This was so apparent against Venezia. Like, everyone took a touch, they waited, then they moved it on sideways, and it was just they weren't moving the ball fast enough at all. But it's the same patterns in the kind of middle to final third every time. You pass it out to the wingers, it goes out to Conceição or Weah in this game, or Yildiz. They look forward, they get the ball, they turn back around, they pass it back to the centre midfielder. The centre midfielder moves over to the other side, passes it out to the other winger. The winger gets the ball, he turns around, he passes it back it's the same thing over and over again. It just allows the defence to get into defensive position. The centre midfielders are offering nothing offensively. The fullbacks, which I said on Thursday's show, again, we saw in this game, they never do any overlaps. They never get forward. The only width is from the wingers themselves, who have nowhere to go because they've got no one making runs forward, and they just cut back and come back. It's just that the only tactic Juventus seem to have is get it out to the wingers, and then the wingers, either they do a dribble or a moment of themselves, or they do a cross, or they cut back and lay it back to the centre midfielder. That's literally Juventus's attacking patterns at the moment, and then they're getting nothing from their centre forward because Dusan Vlahovic is so horrific at linking up the play and holding the ball up with his back to play, that you can't go into the front man either and allow him to kind of do a give and go with a Cook Miners or something like that, because he can't do that. He's useless on the ball, holding the ball up. So they haven't got that weapon at all. And then also going back to like the Bologna days, Juventus don't have a centre back that can make those press breaking runs to create an extra man in midfield and further forward like they had with Calafiori. Gatti did it bizarrely. You'll get that once every 10 games with Gatti against Man City for the first goal, which is probably why Juventus ended up scoring that goal. So everything is just so predictable, and it's just the same all the time, and the opponents know what you're going to do. And as a result of that, you don't create any chances, which they didn't. They didn't create any chance against the second worst defence in the league in this game. They scored off a corner, and they scored with a lucky penalty, one in injury time. What else did they create in this game?
No, they didn't. They deserve to lose it if you look at, if you think about it. And the problem is, I thought I think my issue when on Thursday I said I felt that this could be the beginning of turning a corner, even though there were issues with chance creation. But this was again a demonstration that no, we haven't, because this is not a team constructed, and they don't have a coach who is able to mitigate the lack of quality in the final third tactically. And so whenever they do push forward, it's again exactly what I thought we had turned, or was hoping for Juventus that they had turned a corner, is that when they do push forward, they still manage to maintain defensive solidity. Well, they don't. They don't. Whenever they play a side they should be beating, it seems that when they push forward, they leave themselves exposed at the back. And Venezia scored twice. And this is
Venezia actually had 3 pretty good chances in the first half, actually, long before they equalised.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
Not massive chances, but decent, good chances.
Yeah, but it still again shows the issues that Juventus have and have had now for quite a few years.
The other issue that I've noticed,
it's not being addressed, and it's not better, even though this season they arguably have much better players. And I don't think it's just Vlahovic. It's again like I said before, it looks okay as soon up until the final third, and then everything.
I would say okay up until the centre circle. I would say there. I would say that's where it really kind of breaks down. They're very good at getting out of the first press, although they struggled against Bologna. But against City, they easily got through the press. They have no problem with that. They're very good. It's actually top. Like, it's the press breaking. The first line of press breaking is kind of what you would get from one of the top teams in Europe. Like, only a few teams in Europe are able to break out the first press like Juventus do. So Motta does have something there. He has some qualities there, but it's once it gets to the centre third, it's just, I don't know whether it's being too risk averse. I hope it's just that. I hope it's just that Motta, he can do it, but he's just so risk averse that he doesn't want to do it. Because if he's unable to do it, then that's a problem. That's a big problem. If it's just he needs to be braver and he's not willing to do that, then that's fine. That can be fixed. If he's just so risk averse, if he's just doing kind of like what Mikel Arteta does at Arsenal, basically, which is just he's so risk averse that he doesn't want to push too many men forward, but there is the ability to do that if he wants to, then I think it has the possibility, Juventus have the possibility of coming good. And I'm not giving up on him for that reason. But
you can't give up after 16 games. But
if you're not changing, Cook Miners had maybe his worst game for Juventus in this game. And now I think there's tactical reasons for that as well. It's not just some kind of Atalanta syndrome, although you do have to ask that question as well. I think it's, as I said on Thursday's show, he's playing with his back to goal all the time. He gets the ball and he's always got his back to goal. He's got no men in front of him. He's got no one to pass to in front of him because no one's making forward runs. And it's like, well, what do you expect him to do? He's basically playing almost as a false nine. And it's like, well, he's not being used right. And the journalist asked the question at full time, basically saying what I've been saying for a couple of weeks now is, why don't you play Coop Miners deeper? Play almost more of a 4-3-3 rather than a 4-2-3-1 that allow him to get on the ball more in centre midfield. Let him get more touches. Let him have the game in front of him rather than him play as this kind of number 10, which he's completely failing as, because it's not working there. But he's not. But Motta turned that back and said, "No, I see them in training every game, and he's doing very well there in training." Well, he's not doing very well in the games in that position. Mm. So, what are you going to do, Motta? Are you going to just continue with the same tactics that are not working, the same attacking patterns that are not working, or are you going to try and change? Now, Fonseca at Milan, who we'll come to, Fonseca's failing as well. But at least he's trying different things. They're not working, but he recognises that things are not working and he's trying to find a solution to them. Yeah. With Motta, it's clearly not working offensively, but doesn't seem to be making the tactical structural changes. He's just carried on doing the same thing and hoping that eventually it will start working.
But it's the same, but I'm not surprised by this because it was Zirkzee Calafiori who, this is how it looked at Bologna, and he had individual players who were able to break that pattern. last season at Bologna. This is who he is. And if he does push forward, as we have seen, with this Juve, they concede too much at the back, and it was kind of similar at Bologna as well. This is who he is.
I've said
And
it all along, Nima. Sorry to butt in there. That this Juventus are more successful against the bigger teams, and we've actually kind of seen that they played better in most of the big games. Even Inter with the chance creation in the Inter game, even though I know the defense
that
was
game
bad
was
in that game,
crazy.
but the chance creation I'm talking about here against the big teams, because the big teams come at you, and the inability to create attacking plays like we've seen against these smaller teams because they sit back. Well, those gaps are there for you are open for you. We saw that in the Man City game when it basically becomes you're creating chances through transitions and counter attacks rather than really any kind of real kind of worked out structural play. I mean, that's maybe a little bit unfair, but do you know what I mean? So it's completely different. And we also saw that to an extent with Bologna. Check out Bologna's record against the big teams under Motta. It was absolutely insane. Incredible record against the bigger teams. He actually struggled more against the smaller teams with Bologna than he did against the bigger teams. And that is, and then obviously everybody will, even the smaller teams will come out and
If
play
you
more
look at
against
Bologna's,
Bologna.
if you look at Thiago Motta's first season with Bologna, the 22-23 season, they conceded 49 goals in 38 games. Now, he was not happy about that, and so he addressed it.
That wasn't all
And
him though. He didn't have the whole season, did he?
he came in September, didn't he?
Um,
On the 12th of September, he was named,
was it as
replacing
early as that? Yeah.
Vlahovic. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, but regardless, it's he doesn't like to concede a lot, and he wants to, again, this is who he is. And I think what masked a lot of it last season was the unbelievable overperformance of finishing fifth. They conceded 32 goals in 38 games. They scored pretty much the same, 54 last season, and they scored 53 the season prior to that. So this is who he is, and he's not, and when you appoint him, this is the kind of homework you should have done.
I think where he's failing, I'll tell you where he's also failing. This goes on from what I said when I said I've been speaking to some people around Juve about his fitness training. If you watch Juventus in the first games of the season, Juventus had a lot of intensity. Their high press was working really well. They were winning the ball high up the pitch, winning it quickly, and then that creates opportunities to create chances. Again, not necessarily through your structural build-up play, but through winning the ball high up, and then you've got the opposition out of position. The opposition have made mistakes, and you create chances that way. If you watch the first games of the season when Juventus are playing, one game a week before the Champions League starts, Juventus is pressing, high press and intensity. I remember us praising it on the show. Actually, was really, really good. Now, as soon as Juventus have started playing 2 games a week, it's almost like the Antonio Conte syndrome. As soon as you start playing twice a week, you can't run like that. You can't have that kind of intensity and that kind of intense pressing, high pressing, unless you've got an incredible medical team, nutritional team, and whatever else working for you. You can't do that. It's impossible. It's not physically possible. So we've seen. I mean, if you watch Juventus now, in terms of their pressing, their high press, it's almost non-existent compared to what it was in the first game of the season, and compared to what he was doing with Bologna last season, where Bologna's high press and winning the ball back was absolutely fantastic. Now he can't do that. Now I think that this is also a sign of, obviously it's a learning curve. He's a young manager, adapting to going from 1 game a week to 2 days a week, and knowing how your team, what you can ask of your players, and what works and what doesn't work when playing twice a week compared to once a week. I think we're seeing that as well. That the rewards he was getting last season, he's not getting this season because he can't. The team Juventus can't press, and we've seen
Could
Juventus
be.
be very flat. And I think that a lot of the criticism from the people I've been speaking to has been that he is treating Juventus almost like he was Bologna last season, in that he's training them intensely as if they're playing once a week, and you can't do that. And this is something that he needs to learn as a manager as well. And if that means he may have to adapt how his teams play and how his teams train for that, because at the moment they look flat. They looked really flat against Venezia. Okay, they had a game a few days before, but they were moving the ball so slowly. They weren't really pressing and winning it back. It was, so I think that is also affecting Juventus's performance as well. And Motta needs to adapt to that. He needs to recognise that and adapt to it.
He does, and he needs to understand how to use his midfield more in the final third to get more goals from them, to have them more involved. Because again, the attacking, the chance creation is flat lines as soon as they reach the opposition's final third, the final third of the pitch, and it's and Cup miners. I mean, now it's first it was Douglas Luiz who was a complete flop, and now it's Cup miners. Now, I don't think that it's both. I mean, you can tell me that there is, of course, a chance that both of them are duds, but I don't think that's. I wouldn't go there right now, because Cup Miners is not someone who was a one-hit wonder. We've seen him for several years in the Serie A develop. Douglas Luiz as well. He's a good player. We've seen him, when used properly, what he can do. So the question again lands on Thiago Motta, and more importantly, on Cristiano Giuntoli. This is again his issue, and I keep banging on about Giuntoli because did he do enough of his homework when he appointed Thiago Motta? Did he know what he was getting? And if he did, why didn't he get the players that he needed him to get in order to be able to mask for these evident deficiencies? And the players he did sign have all been, well, most of them have, well, who has succeeded out of the new signings except for Di Gregorio? Let's be honest.
I think
Thuram's been okay, but
I think Thuram's
he hasn't played enough. Let's say that he's an unknown.
I think Thuram's been good. I think Conceição has been good as well.
Individual player Conceição, exactly. So it's not thanks to Motta's building. Like, this is again what I mean. This falls on Giuntoli.
I think Kalulu's been excellent. I don't think all of the signs have been dud, but the signings, the midfield signings.
I didn't say all of them have been dud. What I said was, which one has been a straight up success? And not, you can't tell me.
I think Kalulu has. Kalulu's been a big success.
I don't think he's been a big success. He's been all right and good, but he's not been a huge success. You can't. I mean, then we're really lowering the bar of what success is.
I think. Listen. One thing you can't criticize Juventus is their defense. They've got, I think, the second best defense in Serie A, and they had so many.
Well, it depends.
Listen. We're nitpicking now. We're
not nitpicking. I'm saying that all of these issues fall on Giuntoli. He has had over a year to prepare for this season, because we all knew Allegri was leaving last season. Everybody knew that he was going to leave at the end of the last season, right? Yeah. He has had over a year to prepare for this season, and we're about 16 games into the Serie A season. And
listen, I'm not going to defend Giuntoli. He's obviously made mistakes, but I would say that in terms of the preparation phase, he did do some preparation with Cup Miners, and also he couldn't prepare until he knew Juventus were going to finish in the top four, and that was only achieved quite late into the season. You can't prepare a Champions League. A team for the Champions League, and you don't know what your budget is going to be until you've qualified the Champions League.
Well, he did know it in the summer when the time they reached it. Like, this is my point. Again,
but what I'm saying is he didn't have a year. He didn't have a year to prepare.
Yes, but he's had a year to prepare for this. Yes, he's had a year to prepare for this. It doesn't mean that he knows exactly what the budget is. The point of the matter is that when you had over a year to prepare for this, just like Milan's directors who had over a year to prepare for the Fonseca era and have not succeeded, he can't wash his hands of it. He has had ample time to prepare for this season. So far in the Serie A, it's been a failure.
No, it has.
And especially in the attacking phase, which was supposed to be what they addressed mainly this summer by renewing the midfield, by getting rid of Allegri, and it's looking worse. So you can't sit here and tell me that no more excuses, not just for Motta, but also not for Giuntoli.
No, I agree, and that was my overriding message from the start. No more excuses. You can have, obviously, the injury crisis has played a huge role, because at the beginning of the injury crisis, Juventus were 1 point behind the leaders, and now they're miles behind. But the point is that if you can't beat Venezia, I don't care what injury crisis you've got, or there's
you
no
can't
excuses.
Even create against Venezia.
There's no excuses.
You're relying on on a penalty that's not a penalty to get a point at home. Come on. And then the Vlahovic situation as well. Listen, this is, again, they I don't know if there were any offers for him in the summer, but keeping him was evidently a mistake.
I don't think there were offers for him. If I'm honest, I don't know of any people I've spoken to. There wasn't any offers for him.
No,
That's the
because they
problem.
didn't want to sell him. They wanted to
Nah, they
give
were
him a
open to
chance.
selling him. They were definitely open. If the right
Open
offer,
is different
if
from
the
willing.
right offer came in, there was no interest in him.
Yeah,
Who
but
was
this
going to
is what
sign him?
they
Would you
wanted to
sign
get
him?
rid of
Who the
Chiesa.
hell would you sign him if you're a top club?
No, but it's not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there's a difference between being open to selling him and wanting to selling him. I'm
No,
saying,
they were
I'm
open.
saying it was a mistake not to want to sell him in the summer because he's evidently not offering anything that they need in attack. They wanted to sell Chiesa because they felt that his career was, he wasn't worth the money and all the other reasons, and they got rid of him, even taking a small loss in terms of plusvalenza on him. That's how much they wanted to sell him because they needed to get rid of him and his wages and everything else. They didn't want to do that with Vlahovic,
They
and they were
were.
open to, but
Yeah,
open
but
is
they were in a
different from
difficult
wanting to.
position with Vlahovic because he's worth. They had unlike Chiesa, had a massive still on his
Yeah, but
value on his accounts, and you've got to make that back, or you make a huge loss on your accounts for
but
starters.
maybe it would
And
have
if
been
the,
better to make
if
a.
there isn't the interest out there to pay that kind of money, then and then if he ends up staying, you've then got a player that you've tried to sell, and they were they're in a difficult position. Like I've said all along, it's another Chiesa Dybala. And we're now here, 18 months away from his contract ending, and they've got a player that's clearly not.
Well, now what's going to happen is that next summer they're going to have a Chiesa 2.0 if this continues. They're going to have to take they're going to have to take a loss on him
Oh, 100%. It's already Chiesa 2.0 already.
well, exactly. So this is what I mean. Like this is again a miscalculation from Giuntoli.
It's a
And
miscalculation, but the thing is, you've got to have the interest. There isn't the interest in him. There isn't, Nima. There's no one. None of the big clubs want to sign. Who's
it's
gonna
not just
sign
big
him?
clubs. If you have to actively. That's the job of a sporting director or a sporting CEO or whatever. And
Oh,
Giuntoli
that definitely goes
comes.
on. Don't worry, that 100% goes on. But you look out for potential interest to start with before you actively publicly announce your transfer list. It's
I
like,
don't mean that. I don't mean
do
they should have publicly done
no,
anything.
but
I'm
you know what I
saying that you
mean.
should
Like
have.
there isn't interest in. There wasn't interest. There's talk about Arsenal maybe in January but I don't know. I mean, who
Well,
knows? Maybe
if
Arsenal's.
Arsenal buy him, then they would have Juve have won the lottery again, because that I just it's it's really really bad. And again, I think that I can't sit here and talk about Motta because just Motta and not about Giuntoli and the
No,
miscalculations he's made.
it's a combination. It's the same as when
It's
the same when we I don't want to mention his name again because I don't want to do that comparison again. But it's a combination. It's not just one person to blame. There's always a combination of factors why things are things are bad. But the only positive from this game is that Juventus finally scored off a set play. But again,
yeah,
this is a
and that
criticism.
was a good goal as well. I like that goal.
Yeah, it was something that was actually worked, flicked. It was an old Arsenal,
Yeah.
Steve Bold to Tony Adams. Old Arsenal,
Classic,
quite
classic.
apt as in as they were called boring Arsenal. They used to win
Yeah,
1-0 all the time.
yeah.
But
George Graham.
it was because Juventus is, again, this is a criticism of Motta. Juventus haven't been good enough on set pieces, offensive set pieces. They had before this, coming into this game, Juventus has only scored one goal off set pieces, off corners or set pieces, not including penalties. This season, which was the lowest in Serie A, along with Empoli and Monza. No one had scored fewer goals off set pieces than Juventus this season. And if you compare that to the other big clubs, Atalanta 8 goals, Napoli 4, Inter 4, Fiorentina 7, Lazio 6, Milan 4. And Juventus 1 going into this game. But that's not good enough, especially if you're struggling to create so much. I mean, imagine again coming back to Arteta and Arsenal. Like, Arsenal would probably be in mid-table right now if it wasn't for their set piece goals. Set
Mm,
pieces are important, especially when you're struggling. So that's something else that the Motta needs to work on. You know,
mm.
set piece goals. Juventus have got enough big players that they should be more of a threat off set pieces. Players like Gatti and Thuram and Vlahovic, and you know so that it's
And
not
I
good
mean,
enough.
it seems like now the fans have had enough of Vlahovic as well. I mean, the boos and jeers and everything we saw
Yeah.
against Vlahovic was very very interesting to see. In the sense that now they have had enough of him. Now
Mm.
everyone has had enough of him, and Vlahovic did what one shouldn't do and reacted to it instead of just ignoring it, which won't exactly buy him any friends either.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't mentally. He does. He's not. We talked about his game not being a top player. Mentally, he's not a top player as well.
I think
He's
mentally
got
it's
the whole
obvious.
Rafael Leao can't take criticism. Too impulsive to criticism. That I'm critical of the kind of like some of the younger generation that they just can't take any criticism at all. Just weak.
I think mentally he's not worthy. He's not Juventus level. I think it's obvious that he's not mentally Juventus level. I think maybe when he's in form, his finishing and killer instinct could be of a big side, but mentally he's not.
Everything about him, like I don't like
Absolutely.
him. Like for example, even when he scored against Man City, his reaction was kind of like, I'm staying here and all this, and it's like you just
But
scored
that's
against Man City, celebrate it. Why are you going negative after scoring a goal? Like
because it's affected him. Yeah.
it's I don't like it. Anyway, talking about negative, let's move on to Milan, another team that are in big team that are in crisis, even more so right now than Juventus. 0-0 draw for Milan against Genoa. Very frustrating, and I would have to be honest, disappointing performance from Milan. I mean, Patrick Vieira, who's started well at Genoa, they're still unbeaten. They came to frustrate and defend. They didn't really even try to create or score. Um, and Milan had all the ball and game, but again, they struggled to create clear chances. I think they only had one big chance in the whole game.
Yeah.
Morata, when he hit the bar, should have scored. Other than that, they never looked like creating or scoring. The
An
attack,
XG of 1, like 1.11.
yeah,
It's
which all came from the Morata chance as
yeah.
well. By the way,
I
all
mean
of that.
that's not
That
good
was all
enough.
from the Morata chance. So if you take that away, it's like a non-existent xG.
Yeah.
And all the attackers were disappointing. Leao didn't do anything. Abraham came off at half time. Chukwueze, um, Liberali was pretty disappointing as well on his debut, and should have given away a penalty, which we'll come to after. Kamada made no impact. Morata was a little bit more involved, but he was wasteful. So just again confirmed what I said last week. Milan under Fonseca cannot marry together attack and defence. When their attack is creating and scoring, which they've been doing for most of the season, they're too open, or way too open, and they concede too many goals. But when they are good defensively, and they actually have quite a few numbers of clean sheets this season, surprisingly, and they don't look like conceding anything, which was the case in this game. I mean, Genoa created nothing. They're completely toothless in attack. They can't marry the two together. They can't create that balance between being good in attack and good in defence in the same game. It's either one
Oh
or the
yeah,
other.
exactly like Juve, isn't it? A bit like
Yeah,
that.
but Milan kind of veer from one to the other, whereas Juventus pretty much just won,
Mm.
this
No, but
season.
I mean, whenever they do push forward, they concede. Like, I mean, you saw, against Venezia. Again, when they push forward, when they open themselves, they cannot maintain defensive stability.
No,
Whilst with
Fonseca can't find. He's looking for solutions, as I said before, but he can't find them. And this game, he threatened before the game after the Champions League match in midweek against Red Star that he'd play the youngsters. He did. He dropped Teo Hernandez. He started Liberani and Jimenez. I actually thought Jimenez was excellent. I thought he was maybe even Milan's best player in this game. I thought he showed really good personality. He wanted the ball. He was trying things, shots, dribbles, crosses. He was, getting past his man on the outside. I thought he was really good, and I think he looks like he's got a good future ahead of him. Liberali struggled, to be honest. He had a few nice touches, and you can see he's a natural talent, but he didn't. Yeah, he didn't have a good game, and should have been the villain of the piece as well, which again we'll come on to in a bit. So he's
and
trying.
now Rafael Leao has gone on social media with a picture of them together, and putting a heart and an hourglass, tagging Teo, showing support to Teo. I mean,
Okay,
Fonseca he only used 3 subs, didn't he? I mean, he's just he didn't bring on any of them. He brought on Okafor, Camarda, and Morata.
There's no reason. There's no need for. Again, this is coming back to what I was saying about Vlahovic. It's just mentally. You just don't. It's just something you don't do. Like why? He's only dropped him for one game. I mean, he hasn't died. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is this? It's like, this is what I mean about the younger.
He's holding a prayer circle.
This is what I mean about some of the younger generation. It's like they treat everything like it's the end of the world. It's like he's been dropped for one game. Do you know what I mean?
And he should learn from it as well, because I think I don't.
And he's had a bad season. He's playing badly. It's not like he's playing well.
That's exactly what I mean. There's something called, self-critique as well. Nobody likes to be criticized publicly or privately, but there's such a thing known as self-awareness, where you're like, well, maybe I did do something to deserve this, and I learned from it. And it's not like Fonseca, some sort of Mourinho or Conte who fries people publicly and throws them under the bus. No. All he did after 15 games was say that he was unhappy with some players' attitude, and it was going to have reverberations, which he has 100%. He's correct in that. And so and then these two go on this kind of, and then he goes on this support. It's just, oh my god.
No, it just drives me. It's born loser mentality. That's what it is.
It makes me laugh, because I mean, I understand, because again, I don't think it's loser mentality, and I think that's too harsh. I think it's basically, he's a sensitive guy. Look, he wants to show support to his friend who he feels is going through a rough patch, and I completely understand that. That's only human, but it's just it just becomes such a, it's not a big thing, really. Let's be honest. I don't think it's a big deal, but it becomes such a symbol, and such a good example of the mentality that this group of Milan players, the issues they have in terms of mentality. Because again, you can't convince me that Fonseca's somehow humiliated his players, or he's done anything like that.
No, he's a very, very nice guy. Everyone I've spoken to says he's the loveliest person.
If anything, you could say that he's been too lenient on them. I mean, you could really make that argument. And so as soon as he shows some discipline, you have this. It just becomes such a glaring example.
After Leao and Thiago did their cooling incident, if I was the manager, I'd have hung them up.
But you know what I mean. Like it's like it gets to the point where you're like, it just becomes such an glaring example of what the issue is. And
no, absolutely, like things we've been saying all along, Nima. They're not a team. They don't act like a team. This is not what winning teams do. They don't do this, exhibit this kind of behavior.
And one thing we have to admit after 16 games is that Pioli actually managed to create a team. In terms of having them united. Remember how many times Pioli during his 5-6 years managed to get this team to react when they were in crises, get them to build together.
As a dressing room, as a changing room,
Yeah, he could. Now, Fonseca has not been able to do that. Of course, there's, similarly to Thiago Motta, it's a new era, it's new players, it's blah, blah. But the question remains to me here is, and the same thing I'd say was, to a lesser extent with Juve, but it's the same thing, and that is, well, how much do you blame the coach and how much do you blame the directors? Because for me, this is again on the directors. They're the ones who had ample time. Like, again, they knew Pioli was good. Everybody knew that Pioli was going to leave at the end of last season, and they had all the time in the world to decide on who to pick. They had all the time in the world to decide which players to keep and which players to sell, and to kickstart this project again. And they failed in every.
Let me stop you there, Nima, and let's ask the question, because we've got a segment on this, and that is, we'll start off by talking about Fonseca, and then we'll move on to the management straight after. So let me ask the question first with Fonseca, because the question needs to be asked now. Milan have a decision to make. The top four is sliding away and really at risk, even more so much more so, I would say, right now than Juventus. Can Milan, or should Milan stick with Fonseca? Can they actually risk sticking with Fonseca? Given, the Scudetto obviously is gone, but given how much they really risk missing on the top four. Should Milan start thinking about sacking Fonseca?
I think that is definitely something they should take into their calculations. But given that the situation that they have created, the Milan directors, because again, the issue is not just the results. The issues are that you have players who mentally are not worthy of being at Milan. They are great players with individual skill, fantastic, world class, even talent, skill, whatever. But the mentality just isn't there. And if you sack the coach at this point, well, you're building a pretty dangerous precedent, because you're kind of shifting the power over to the players and basically saying that they can get anyone sacked. That's a really dangerous virus to get into a dressing room, because if that can easily become something that players used to. As soon as they don't like a manager and his decision, they just stop playing for him, and the manager gets sacked, and it continues. We've seen it time and time again at different clubs. So I think at this moment in time, it's very, very dangerous if they did that.
I'm not sure how much the players want. I mean, I have no inside information on this, but I don't know how much the players want Fonseca to be said, if they want him to be said. I'm not sure if we're there. I think that clearly there's an issue that Fonseca is not able to. Maybe the job is too big. Maybe the job is too big for him, but he's not able to get.
I'm not saying that the players want him sacked. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying, for all intents and purposes, when you clearly have the issues that you have at Milan so publicly, if you sack the manager at that point, you're essentially setting a precedent, a very dangerous precedent, regardless of what the players want actively or not, where it's you essentially tell them by your actions that they can get the manager sacked when they're not happy. That is very, very dangerous. And I think that's a very dangerous risk.
I think that would assume that they're not happy with the manager. I mean, that might be the case. I think you have a decision to make. Like, look at the situation for Milan right now. They're 8th in the table. They're 14 points off the top. So obviously the Scudetto's gone. They do have a game in hand. But they're 8 points off the top four. And you look at their results this season: 6 wins, 5 draws, 4 losses in Serie A. But in the last 2 months, 3 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses. I mean, that's win, draw, loss, win, draw, loss, win, draw, loss. I mean, that's just simply not good enough. It's not even close to being good enough. So you have a decision to make. Like, do you want to stick with Fonseca with these results, where there's no signs of improvement? Because, as I've said, the results are win, draw, loss the last 2 months. Or, do you stick with Fonseca and risk missing the top four and the financial ramifications of that going forward, as well, looking ahead to next season? Do you risk it, or do you change it now, bring in someone like a Sarri or someone else that's going to get you into the top four? I mean, I don't know. I mean, are you that married to the Fonseca project, or do you just accept that, well, this project isn't going to work if we give him more time?
Well,
I mean,
the issue
showing signs that it is going to work.
My issue, again, is that in this specific moment in time, if you sack Fonseca, you would be setting a very dangerous precedent by your actions, which is very, very difficult to stamp out later on, where you essentially, every manager almost has this question mark hanging over them as soon as they walk through the door. I don't think... that is a result of everything that's happened very publicly since the beginning of the season until now. But I do think that there is a mitigating factor. And then I look at Fiorentina, I look at Lazio. I mean, Lazio, Fiorentina, Inter are the teams above there, and they're 8 points behind them. Fiorentina and Lazio, they kind of have the same. Lazio play tonight against Inter, but Fiorentina have a game in hand just like Milan do. So it's not panic mode. The red alarm bells are really ringing. I wonder if right now is the right time to do it. I wonder if, again, it's about risk analysis and what you gain, what you stand to lose, and so on. But regardless, if you are to do it, if you are to bring someone else in, it cannot be, in my opinion, just a traghettatore. You can't just bring someone in and say, okay, well, you're just going to be the caretaker coach until the end of the season, and then we're going to relaunch. That would be a disaster. If you're going to do it, then basically rip up everything and say, okay, well, this is the person we're backing. This is the person we're going to actually build with, because at least that way you send a message to the players that, okay, didn't work out with Fonseca, but all of you are not off the hook. Do you see what I'm saying? Because if you just get a traghettatore, someone who just comes in and bring everything to the end of the season, well, you're essentially saying, well, okay, the season's a write-off. You're all off the hook. Then we'll see what happens in the summer, which ones of you stay and who goes. That would just be and not to mention what a betrayal that would be to the fans. It would be pissing them in the face.
The fans are not happy at all, and it seems to be right now. I mean, the Milan players were booed off the pitch.
Did you see before the game?
Well, there was lots of good. I mean, this was supposed to be a celebration. Remember, this was the 125th anniversary of Milan.
Well.
Before the game, you had a parade of like all the legends that walked out. I mean, all the
Maldini.
legends like Van Basten, Gullit, Rijkaard, Baresi, Inzaghi.
Except Maldini.
And
Boban.
Well, Boban wasn't invited, which I thought was a terrible look. I know there's been obviously legal issues between the club, but that's just awful. And then Maldini refused the invitation.
That is just another...
Maldini also put out a quote after the game, which was quite telling as well about what's going on at Milan. But so the relationship's not good there. But there was a banner from the Milan fans towards the management, which said in the Curva Sud, which said, "We honour our champions, those symbols of a Milan that no longer exist," which was quite telling.
And not just that, when they were chanting that we're not Americans, I couldn't stop laughing. Noi non siamo americani. It just made me, I just could not stop laughing. It was so surreal.
Well, there was lots. There was that. There was a banner outside San Siro which said, "To the Milan management, we have waited and supported you endlessly. We've had enough of your mediocrity." There was the chants, like you said, "We are not American." There was the chant.
Such a ridiculous chant. I'm sorry, I can't take that seriously. We're not American. What's that got?
You don't deserve us. We are fed up. And then there was also chants of Cardinale, you have to sell as well. So I mean, it's clear that the Milan fans are not happy with the management, and they seem to have lost the fans as well, which again just adds to the whole, how do you possibly create some kind of unity between the players, the manager, the fans, the management? Like, if everybody's not rowing in everybody's fighting against each other, the infighting, it's a mess. It's a complete mess. Like, how do you possibly, where do you start? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, like, where do you start? And I think it's where you start. Where do you start? Well, you should have. We know where you should have been, but where you go from here? Again, I said it's risk analysis. Okay, you can absolutely make an argument that you should sack Fonseca, absolutely. But at the same time, this is, again, a coach who has done everything to make it work. He's tried everything, literally trying everything to make it work in terms of tactical changes. He's tried approach to be professional. He's fighting for Milan in the sense that he wants them to bleed for the shirt. And that's where it's kind of falling apart. If you sack him then, that's my point. Then you're essentially saying that it's okay not to care for the shirt. Because unless you bring in someone who you marry and give a long-term contract to and say, look, this is now your show, and that way you basically make it clear to the players that everyone is under sotto esame, in the sense that whichever player, no matter who you are, does not start showing the right attitude and backing the club's decision to go with this coach, regardless if it's Fonseca or a new coach, you're out in the summer. I mean, you have to do something. You can't continue like this. It's not.
Well, he didn't even turn up, did he, to the 125th anniversary, which wasn't a good look either. But yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, I think where it all started to really go wrong, and this is where Maldini is the common denominator here, not turning up, and he put his sent out a message: "Happy birthday, Milan, for your 125th birthday. No one will ever be able to undermine your bond with the Maldini family, history
Oof.
and memory. No
Yeah.
one will ever be able to undermine." I mean, that's not even subtle. Who that's directed at?
There's nothing subtle about that.
No. So I mean, he's the tie with all of this. That's where it all started to really
Well, of course it
fall
does. You have
apart,
to
wasn't
be an
it?
idiot to go to war with a Maldini at Milan. Like again, it's like when like so again you may not want to like it, but the fact of the matter is that Italy is Italy. It works in these ways. There are certain things you can't do. You can't at Roma humiliate De Rossi or Totti. You can't at Milan humiliate Maldini. If you do, these have football political reverberations that go on forever. It's as simple as that. And that's what they don't understand. You have to be diplomatic about these issues. These are touchy subjects for these environments. And it's not more difficult than that. And they haven't understood it, neither at Roma or at Milan. And so they have created their own cluster F of a mess. And so and it's not like, again, these aren't just random run-of-the-mill people. It's Paolo Maldini, for Christ's sakes. I mean, there's no bigger symbol of, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just you just don't do this. And now they have, and he's his honor has been hurt and questioned and insulted. So he's not going to give up. But I don't know. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And well, I don't know where they go from here on out. I don't know where they continue. What do they do? Do they sell the club, which would again be another rebirth of Milan, or which I don't think is going to happen, because I don't think anyone's going to pay Cardinale what he wants for Milan. Just not, Italian clubs just aren't worth that. If they were worth that, then neither Oak Tree or Redbird would be at Inter or Milan. So the short end of it is, okay, you appoint, you get rid of Fonseca, but then again, like I said, there is a real risk of, because the conflict at Milan between Fonseca and the players, quote unquote, is not just results, it's also how the players behave. And Fonseca, again, has not humiliated them. He's not publicly thrown them under the bus. He's, if anything, been very kind and very gentle and tried everything, shown that he wants to make this work, but he needs the players to come on board, and they're not, for whatever reason. And that's a dangerous precedent to set when you sack the coach. And I think
it's a perfect storm.
It's a perfect storm.
It's a perfect storm.
It really
right now,
is. It's
isn't
a mess.
It is.
It's a mess.
It is. Like, what do you do? But yeah, talking of perfect storm, which was a Hollywood film. Let's move on to Como versus Roma, which had a Hollywood ending at the end of the game. Como win 2-0 with 2 goals in injury time. Gabrieloni in the 93rd minute, then the brilliant Nico Paz. What a fantastic player he is. To win it for Como in front of a bunch of Hollywood stars. Keira Knightley was the one that stood out the most in the crowd. Adrian Brody, Michael Fassbender, Dele Alli was there as well. Potentially could start training with Como over Christmas. So it certainly was. It certainly was an interesting spectacle. We know that Como is a place where a lot of the rich and the famous go, and they're often at the games, but they seem to really all be there for this match. Good for Como is a massive win for them. First win in 10, so they move out of the relegation zone, and they played well and probably deserved to win in the end. For Roma, it was not a great performance from them, to be honest. I think Claudio Ranieri's made a really good impact so far since he's joined. And this is probably the first real setback, really, in terms of expectation. I think it was a team that was quite flat and lacking energy. Playing in the Europa League a few days before probably had an impact, but they also, a flu hit team. Like they lost Hummels in the warm up, and because he was been suffering from flu, and Dovbyk apparently has had a virus for like several weeks and still isn't fully over it. He came on. So who knows? I think Paredes didn't play either because he had the flu. So who knows if some of the others maybe were not 100% for similar reasons. It seems to be ravaging the squad right now. So yeah, they didn't play well. They had, I think, 6 shots to 17, and they had the odd chance. I mean, Dybala had a big chance at 0-0 with 15 minutes to go, where that could have won the game. But overall, wasn't a good performance from Roma, and they lose.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really much more to say other than that. It's Roma, like we've said, the season's a write off, and if I wonder, I don't really know what they can do to save it. I think they just need to make sure that they don't actually end up in a relegation battle.
That's not going to happen though. I don't think.
Listen, don't underestimate when things go bad in these places that are volatile, these volatile piazze. When things go bad, they can spiral out of control, and the pressure that you're under can really end up costing you things that you never in a million years expected to cost you. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying it shouldn't be underestimated. They're only 2 points off 18th spot. Okay? They're 12th on 16 points. Cagliari, 18th, have 14 points. Like, they have to be careful. It's just that simple. Now, of course, they have the quality to not be there, but they have the quality not to be 12th either. And it's a dangerous situation. I do think that Ranieri in the end will be able to sort it out and kind of just stabilize it, and they'll finish somewhere, I don't know, from 12th to 13th, 14th, somewhere there. But it's a dangerous situation, and I wonder if the this kind of new manager bounce, this kind of Claudio Ranieri, Gran Nonno Roma coming in and giving everyone a reality check and saving everyone, like that kind of positive vibe has worn off a little bit. And now we have to see what he does. Can he, how does the squad react to that? I don't know. It's again, like, speaking of perfect storms, it's really brewing.
Yeah, I won't read too much into this defeat. But yeah, it's obviously, like you said, it's difficult to talk too much about Roma because the season's such a write-off. It's like, well, what do you really talk about with them?
But that's the danger as well. When everyone agrees that this season is a write-off and you're only 2 points off the relegation spot, like, this is again what I mean. It's dangerous. They have to focus. They can't just live from next season. They have to live in the now. They're not going to achieve greatness in the Serie A this season, but they also have to be concentrated and disciplined enough to not actually find themselves in a relegation scrap. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's mad, but we got to, Como, who are in the relegation scrap and are expected to be in the relegation scrap, take a really, really important win. And that 18, I mean, that again from 12 to 18 is just crazy.
It's so tight. It's so impossible. It's impossible to call who's gonna.
But the positive thing though here is that since Monza and Venezia are on 10 and are so much worse than everyone else, that kind of saves everyone a little bit, because there's only one spot that I honestly think that even if Monza, or when Monza sack Nesta, I'm sure there'll be a bounce, and 5 points is not impossible to make up. But I do get the feeling that at some point there will be 2 teams out of all of these teams that will be, not just Venezia and someone else will be so far off come April, March, that there only will be one spot left to battle it out over.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, listen, I'm not going to argue with you. You're the relegation
No,
expert,
no, I'm not saying.
but but I don't know. I mean, the impression I get is that everybody's drawing a lot. Nobody seems to be pulling away, and like,
Well,
yeah,
Verona won, Como won, Lecce won. It's Cagliari lost to Atalanta, which is expected. But my point is simply this: that I look at that table and I think that, okay, well, Monza's squad is not bad, and they shouldn't really be there. I just think Nesta just might not be the coach to actually get the most out of them, and I think he will be sacked soon. I think it's only a matter of time. But once they do, and there is more than enough time for them to recover from that, I just get the feeling that when I look at the rest of these teams, I just get a feeling that, I don't know, I just get the feeling that at least two of them come March, April will be out of it. And that will be the saving grace for lots of teams, because there's so many of them that, I don't know, I just feel that they just they can free fall, if you know what I mean, like Hellas have done, or that where they just go 6-7 games without a single point. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't. I wonder how it'll look in March, April. My feeling is telling you that there will be two teams out of it, and that'll be a saving grace, because I think this is this last place is going to be an absolute, like, nail biter. To come May.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move on to Bologna Fiorentina, which was a game that I really enjoyed watching. It was a very, very entertaining game. Both teams going at each other. Vincenzo Italiano beats his old team, celebrates wildly at the end of the game, and really upsets his former employers. Odegaard with the winner, and Bologna are doing, like we said, they're actually doing really well in Serie A this season. If they win their game in hand, they'll be level with Juventus. They're above Milan now, and the Champions League obviously has been a disaster. But in Serie A, I think I'm correct in saying they've only lost 2 games all season. Am I correct there?
No, you are. They've only lost 2 games.
Which is insane. 16
Yeah.
games, 15. Only lost 2. Obviously, they've drawn a lot, like Juventus, but I mean, they can be level with Juve if they win that game in hand. So, yeah, Bologna are doing really well, given I think really well, given having lost like over half their team and all their best players last season. Yeah, they've done well, and they deserve to win this game. I think Odegaard was excellent. I really love watching Dominguez. He's got some great skills, great touch, great close ball control. I mean, I don't know how far he'll go in the game, but I do enjoy watching him. He's a very artistic player, and the defense conceded very little in this match. And Sam Bukema is really, really impressing me now. And I think the more and more I watch him, the more and more I think that he's going to end up joining a bigger club. And Luchumi was good as well. So, yeah.
I think
Bologna.
Bukema already in January might leave.
Yeah, I don't know how much they'll ask for him, but he's really impressing me.
Yeah.
He impressed me against Juve, but he's a good defender, but he's also very good on the ball, uses the ball, passes it well. I like him. So yeah, Bologna are really good. Fiorentina's run comes to 8 wins in a row.
Yeah, but we
maybe.
also have to acknowledge that Raffaele Palladino's mum died, and he wasn't there, and it was, you have to have a heart of stone if you don't feel for Fiorentina and all the insane, horrible things that have happened to them these last few years. I mean, they just can't catch a break. It's like
They're cursed.
It's almost like they are cursed. I mean, it's so sad, and my heart goes out to him, to them, everyone surrounded with the club. It's like they have to deal with death all the time. It feels like, more than anyone else, and it's difficult to try to run to try to be professional when these things happen over and over again. So I do have nothing but empathy and sympathy for Fiorentina as a club, and of course Palladino, whose mum passed away. So
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't the best preparation.
And as for Italiano was nervous after the game. I don't know if you saw, because Prader, the Fiorentina sporting director,
Yeah,
said,
he celebrated. He did probably over celebrate for me, but there's something there has happened, hasn't
no,
it?
but it's not. No, but that's the thing, though. If you saw what Italiano said, he was like, "Well, if Prader would notice, he sees that I celebrate like that all the time this season since joining Bologna,"
Mm,
which I think was a ridiculous thing to say, because you don't play your former team every week, and you don't play your former team where they had a player almost die, and on the weekend that their current coach's
mm,
mother died and isn't there. Like, that's a weird excuse. One could simply have handled it a little bit better, and basically said, look, I didn't mean any disrespect. It was and if they took it that way, I wish to apologize. I didn't mean it like that at all. I have nothing but fond memories from Fiorentina, blah, blah, blah. But he didn't. He didn't say anything like that. In fact, he just went on the defensive.
I
And
think he shouldn't. Yeah, I think the issue is what happened before that. Like he should. I just think he should have understood the moment a little bit with
that's what I
with
mean.
everything that's going on, like Palladino.
That's what I mean. That's exactly what I
Even
mean. But he didn't do that.
even Bove to an extent, and also it is his old club. Although the old club thing, maybe we don't know what happened. There might have been some bad blood. They might have done something to upset him, and this was him kind of getting maybe some kind of revenge. That I'm not going to have a go at him too much because we don't know what happened. But the other stuff with regards to Palladino and Bove, I think he could have probably
You
should
can
have
tone it down
toned
a
it
bit. And
down.
even
Yeah,
if you do celebrate like that, that's what I mean. That, the context of it matters. And instead, after the game, he went really defensive. I think the most appropriate thing in that situation would have been to just say, look, I didn't mean it like that at all. I do this all the time, but I can understand why they took it that way. And for this, I'm sorry. And for me, there's no issue. And if I offended anyone, I'm sorry. And that's the end of it. But he didn't do that. He didn't do that at all. And that makes it a bit, what's going on? Because again, Bove almost died on the pitch in front of all of us.
mm,
And the Fiorentina's coach, his mum died. Like, he's not even there. Like, you can handle things better, is what I'm saying. But clearly, he didn't. He felt he didn't need to, or for whatever reason, he didn't do it. And it's an interesting note. I don't know exactly why or what it means, but I do notice it, and I think that's something to just stick a pin in that. Like, is this the kind of character he is? And he gets
I
he's
think it's pretty
nervous.
simple. I think it's pretty simple. There's been some bad blood. They've left on bad terms. There's something there,
Mm,
and he wanted to celebrate it, and he's made a mistake because he shouldn't have celebrated like that on a
no,
weekend where Palladino's mother died.
yeah,
That's
it's just not.
I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah,
Really, to be
yeah.
honest with you, but I don't think it's. I think he probably wanted to celebrate to get his own back on Fiorentina, but he shouldn't have done it because of the other stuff, not because of the
Well,
fact that
exactly. That's my point. And the
yeah.
fact that he can't control himself, to me, suggests that, okay, well, his mentality, it makes me wonder, is this is he good enough to be at any club from a mental perspective, not just tactical? My questions have been so far about him have been tactical. When I see this kind of behavior, the questions I ask is, do you even have the mental strength to be at a bigger club than Bologna?
Yeah,
I'm not
I
so
don't know.
sure.
I don't know. But anyway, the just an update on Bove as well. He was discharged from hospital on Friday, and this is so he was in hospital for 12 days after his cardiac arrest again in the game against Inter. He has now undergone an operation to have an removable internal defibrillator fitted, which was he needed to have in order to be discharged from hospital. And what that now means is, as we've said before, he won't be able to play in Serie A or for the Italy national team ever again, sadly.
Mm.
So yeah, we'll see
It'll leave. I think we'll
how it
see.
develops.
Yeah, well, I mean, those. I just want to say it was a very, very beautiful thing to see him come to Fiorentina and return, and the players applaud him and all of
Mm.
that. Like, that Fiorentina put out on social media was really, really nice to see. I think he, I wonder where, if they just don't mutual termination, and he goes somewhere outside of
Yeah, we'll
Maybe not.
see. Hopefully, he'll
Maybe not
find a
Premier
club
League.
first, and then I mean, it's very sad,
Very
but
sad.
yeah, all the best for him. Napoli. Let's talk about Napoli. They respond after after their defeat or double defeat to Lazio. It wasn't looking good in the first half. They were 1-0 behind, and they weren't playing well at all in Udine. But the second half, there was really brilliant comeback in the second half. They played really well, dominated the second half. Udinese didn't even have a shot in the second half. Actually, they were that dominant. And Lukaku scored the equaliser, and he made, I guess, made a bit of a point, didn't he? After he's been getting a lot of criticism, rightly so. And it was a kind of a bit of a vintage Lukaku goal, wasn't it? The way that he kind of
Yeah.
like barged through, held off his marker, fell to the floor, and then slid it past the goalkeeper for a really clinical finish. So
Lovely pass by McTominay too.
yeah,
Yeah, it was. It was very much this kind of vintage Romelu in the sense. But I got to say though, I did think that Udinese played a lot into Napoli's hands. I felt they were a little bit too high up with their
yeah,
line and not enough pressure on the ball, which allowed Napoli to play through Udinese far too easily. Um, so yeah, that's just something I just felt like okay. But having said that, after these losses and the question marks around Napoli and is this a real thing? Have they been overperforming and so on and so forth? It was very important for Napoli to show that to show a response, and it was important for Romelu Lukaku to show a response and to do it in the way that they do, where they come back. That breeds mental strength. That shows character. And if anything, contest teams definitely have mental strength and character. And again, look at the table; they're right up there. You know, it's and they're not playing well. They've gone through a difficult period. They're right up there. And we, like I said, don't sleep on Napoli, because when they hit form, as they usually do under Conte from February onwards, if they're still hereabouts,
hmm.
they're going to be very difficult to beat.
No, absolutely. Especially as the other teams will be tiring in the
Exactly.
last third of the season. I
Yeah.
think that's when you've got to really keep an eye on Napoli if they can hang around until then, for sure. Or more than hang around, really. So yeah, so a good win for
And we have to
Napoli,
talk about
and
Anguissa
yeah, I was
as
going to say
well.
Anguissa was a vintage Anguissa as well.
Yeah.
Like the way that he bombarded through the middle and pace and power and a really good finish as well. That was vintage Scudetto Anguissa. That was the
Mm,
Anguissa we saw in the Scudetto season, wasn't it? Just so powerful, and
mm.
can't shrug him off the ball, and he just surges with the ball, doesn't he?
Dominates,
Yeah.
didn't he? Yeah. No, he was very good.
Mm.
It was very, very good. But
Yeah. Yeah, no, good, very good comeback. Defensively, yeah, some defensive errors creeping into
yeah,
Napoli's games in recent matches, which I'm sure Conte will want to address. Yeah, Buongiorno didn't have a good game in this game. He made a massive mistake when Tovan put it over before the before the penalty, and then
mm,
for the penalty, Lobotka was a bit naive with his handball, which Tovan scored well from a rebound. Didn't he? Missed the penalty was
mm.
saved, and he put the rebound in. But yeah, apart from that, yeah, good comeback from Napoli, and saw the togetherness.
Buongiorno's been, I mean, it's been for quite a while now. It's been for about a month and a half where he's made mistakes, and he's gotten away with it. So, that's something. It could just be bad form after a fantastic start.
Mm,
But yeah, I've been, again, just noted it. Like, it's been for about 4 or 5 weeks now that Buongiorno makes mistakes in games, important mistakes, and they've gotten away with it. But he can't continue doing that because, sooner or later that will bite you. But of course, then again, you have Conte there to rectify it and and tell you that you've made a mistake. So it's
yeah, it was no,
you
it was
know,
an important win. It was an important win because um, it brings them back to 2 points behind
mm,
the leaders, Atalanta, who had temporarily gone earlier in the day, had gone 5 points clear after they made history 10 Serie A wins in a row. The first time in the history of Atalanta. It's an incredible achievement, but in all honesty, they were probably a little bit fortunate to win this game. Certainly fortunate to very fortunate to go 1-0 up and not be behind when Zaniolo came on as a sub to put them ahead and then obviously won the game, because Carnesecchi really was really the hero for Atalanta in this game, because he made 8 saves in total in this match. But
there was 2 of them that were out of this world, all in one chance. Like,
yeah,
it was
the double save
double save was
before
just
half time.
insane.
Yeah, he made 4 huge saves in the space of like a few minutes right before half time, and that kept it at 0-0 going into the break. And yeah, he was absolutely brilliant. I was a little bit critical of him for the goal he let in against Bellingham in the defeat to Real Madrid, but he was he looked unbeatable in this game. He reminded me a bit of like, when Toldo was kind of on it around about 2000, 2001, and he was just like, he had that aura of being unbeatable, and then and he kind of celebrated every save, and he was just like intimidating the opposition as well with his presence and with his just like, you can't beat me. Like, he was doing that. Like, he was celebrating his saves. He was monster, Carnesecchi, in this game. They have to thank him a lot, Atalanta, because they didn't play. Atalanta only really got going in the second half once they made a triple sub at half time, and then they made another double sub at 65 minutes. And the double sub at 65 minutes was Samadžić and Zaniolo, and within a minute, Samadžić did the pre-assist for a Bellanova cross, and then the other sub, Zaniolo, put it in. So really, it was the subs really that kind of turned this game around for Atalanta, and I guess showed the kind of depth that they have as well.
They do, and this is, if you're going to win the league, then this is how you win games. With games that you probably don't deserve to win, but you have a goalkeeper that steps up and saves you. We have to, after 16 games and where they are and how they're playing, and even though this is a fantastic form they're in, and it's probably not sustainable, they're not going to win another 20, 30 games in a row. I think that's highly unlikely, but this again shows that this is a team that is da Scudetto for sure, no doubt about it. But I have to say, the thing I liked the most was how Gasperini handled this, and how he went after the game and said, Zaniolo can't continue to celebrate like this, because when he does, he fires up the opposition. I loved that. Yeah. I loved seeing how that he went after that.
That's the kind of thing that's we're talking about loser mentality, the winning mentality. That's winner mentality.
That's winner mentality. Yeah. That is straight up winning mentality, where you're like, listen, this is just another step on the path to glory.
Yeah, it's just one win.
Yet. Yeah, exactly. It's just one step to the path of glory. We're not there yet. Calm down, and also don't give the opposition, don't fire them up. No, I agree. I think that was a home run.
Yeah, Zaniolo's done that a bit now, hasn't he? This is the second time.
Yeah, it was the Roma game as well, and he was referring to that, and also the Cagliari game. And no, it was wonderful to see. I think he was absolutely spot on. And if there's one thing it's that at Atalanta, he's the king. Nobody questions his authority there.
No. Now, Gasperini, just following on what your point about Gasperini, I think he's actually starting to behave a little bit more like a winner now as well. Maybe the win in the Europa League, he's got the taste of winning, because he's always kind of called this kind of loser coach, not loser coach, but you know what I mean, like bridesmaid or style without substance. Atalanta are this team that everybody loves, Atalanta, blah blah blah, but they never win anything. Do you know what I mean? Which is unfair, because it's Atalanta, and you're not expected to win anything with Atalanta really, with the resources you have. But everybody loves Atalanta, but tell me, what do they actually win at the end of the day? Yeah. Well, maybe part of that was also a bit of a mentality thing, and Gasperini is starting to actually display the character of more of a winner. Maybe saying things that maybe that he wouldn't have said in the past. He's behaving in a way that, and then that's probably again kind of demonstrates the growth of the club, of the manager, but even the players. Like, we've talked about the maturity that which wasn't there in the Madrid game, which we criticised, but generally has improved as well. So I think those are all good signs.
No, it is, and again the depth. I mean, I'm looking at all these attacking players and how, and also defensively this was again a solid. Okay, Kanaseki saved them, but they weren't as open, in my opinion, as they were against Real Madrid, and they weren't naive. They were mature again, and that is very, very positive for Atalanta, and it's also really positive that you win in games where you probably didn't even deserve a point. And that you can count on your goalkeeper to make these insane saves. This was a very, very statement win, if you will, from that
The only
aspect.
criticism, the only kind of negative, I think, that I want to, to point out amongst all this incredible form that Atalanta are on is Retegui. Retegui's a bit off form at the
Yeah,
moment. You were a bit critical of him in the Champions League, and he
yeah,
hasn't quite done it in the
yeah,
Champions League. But
yeah.
I was having a look. He's actually scored in 2 of his last 10 games
Yeah.
for Atalanta. He was subbed at half time in this match, and
It
didn't
happens.
play well. He also played very badly in both of Italy's games in November as well. So we could say last 12 games for club and country. He's only scored in 2 of them, and he's I mean, I don't know. I mean, this happens. You're going to have periods where you're off form and everything, but maybe it's also that he
He
was.
scored 3. I'm sorry, but I'm looking at
Yeah,
stats
but
and
he scored in 2 games, is what I'm saying.
yeah. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he scored in 2 of the games.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
um, he was maybe overplayed in the early part of the season.
Mm.
Maybe that I think that could be paying the price now. He was played every single
Yeah,
game. We've never
but
got any rest, and I think that's probably accumulated and which I said it at the time when he had that amazing start. Says, look, he's been overplayed, and it's eventually later on in the season, and maybe that is taking its toll now. Maybe he just needs he needs a little bit of a rest, a little bit of a period out, get his energy back, and then I'm sure he'll be
but
back
the
on it.
thing is, Atalanta have the depth. I mean, they do
I
have the.
didn't think that they did that they could do it without I thought that he's the only number 9 that they've got. Obviously Scamacca's injured, but they've shown that even without Retegui, they've been able to get results and still score a lot
Mm,
of goals. So they've kind of proven me wrong so far on that,
mm.
which is a really, really good sign.
No, they are. No, it's going to be interesting to see where this favola goes,
Mm.
where this little story and fairy tale goes, and how it ends. Because not just in Serie A, but also in Europe, how far do they go? I mean, how
Yeah.
many trophies can they win? I mean, it's insane to say it, but it's true. I don't
No.
discount them from anything. You can't tell me that they are chanceless in any of the tournaments that they're in.
No, you can't. You can never write off Atalanta.
You
Write
really
them off
can't, and it's
at
crazy.
your
It's
peril.
absolutely mad that you're saying this, and it's this is what makes football beautiful. I think in a world where everything is just about money and resources, you have this little club who has played all the cards right, built something sustainable, invested correctly, have built a structure in place for many years, and now are reaping the rewards of it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And
In a
it's
country which
really
is doesn't allow for that kind of stuff generally, because
well,
it's
generally, no, exactly.
yeah,
No, it's true. It's true, and it's very interesting to see what they're doing. And it's no, look, it's I don't know. I really, a part of me feels that it's almost a little bit too good to be true.
mm.
But then again, I look at the squad and I'm like, well, that's a really good squad. I don't know. Do you think they can? I mean, not can, but do you think they will win it?
I've given up like writing off Atalanta now. Like,
Yeah, you just don't
like
do that
not
anymore.
writing them off, but kind of trying to put a ceiling on their how far that
Yeah,
they can
they're
go.
limitless.
Yeah. So
They are limitless.
who knows? Let's see.
Mm.
The rest of the other weekend Serie A fixtures: Empoli 0, Torino 1. Che Adams scores from the halfway line, lobs the keeper from the halfway line. Insane goal. I mean, I don't know what the hell the goalkeeper was doing. It was a bit of like, FIFA or Pro Evolution glitch where the goalkeeper just wanders off kind of thing. Like, it was one of those. Great finish. And then Lecce 2, Monza 1, as you said before. Nesta definitely at risk now. And Gianpaolo having a good start at Lecce. And then an entertaining game, Parma 2, Verona 3, which saves, the Verona coach, whose name I've completely forgotten now. Help me out. You're the
Paolo Zanetti.
Paolo Zanetti, sorry, yeah, saves his job. So yeah, Parma,
I
the
mean,
most
it's like I said
inconsistent.
on Thursday. Like this was a goal guarantee. I mean, it's just like this game was exactly as
I
mental
have
as
to say though, Lecce Monza, which you put down as game of the week, I have to
No,
say
I said
that was.
Parma and Hellas for goals.
I was watching a bit of Lecce Monza. It was actually really entertaining.
Yeah, it was
There was lots of drama, 2 penalties
very
disallowed,
yeah.
and controversy and chances
Missed
missed, and
penalties and
yeah,
own goals, crazy own goals. No, but
yeah,
listen, I'm telling you, like the Serie A is never more insane than when these relegation candidates play one another. Like they are just, it's the entertainment is through the roof. Like it's just no, it's wonderful. And no, but Parma Hellas was just, it was crazy.
yeah, yeah. It
You
was.
had but
Let's
to be
finish.
fair, Hellas deserved to win. They created far more. They should have
Yeah,
killed us.
Parma are a bit of a basket case. They are. They really are. Like they're so inconsistent, and you just never know what you're going to get from them.
Never know.
Other than they're going to concede loads of
Goals.
chances and goals. Yeah, yeah.
Goals.
Let's
That's the
finish
only
off
thing.
with Baggio, Premface, and Serie Ass of the week. So Baggio, at half time, this was a guarantee. At half time of the Juventus game, this was guaranteed to be Gatti, but then he threw that away in the second half. Uh,
Well,
so
for
I
me,
don't know.
Che Adams' goal from the halfway
Yeah, I
line.
guess. Yeah, I guess.
You
Ray
can't.
Adams. Yeah,
If
yeah,
you score from there out, like from that distance, it just has to be him. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. That's fair enough. And then Atalanta for their 10th win in a row and creating
yeah,
history as well.
absolutely.
We have to give it to
And
them.
Karnecki, I mean, his
Yeah,
performance was just mental.
magnificent. Yeah, Premface of the week. I've got a couple. The first is Paul Scholes, who puts out an Instagram post or story after Juventus beat Man City, where he writes in it, "Who the f is this Yildiz?" Like,
Jesus
and
Christ.
I think with a clapping emoji. So Paul Scholes didn't know who one of the best youngsters in Europe is.
In all of European football is.
Mm. And
I
he's a
mean,
paid regular, one of the
yeah.
top paid regular TV pundits in England. So
I mean, at this point, it's like I'm wondering, like,
sums up punditry in England.
no,
That
but it's
does
like,
among the ex footballers.
I mean, it's not like this isn't some obscure player in the third division of Turkey. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're talking about a Juventus, like, and one of the biggest stars in who was actually, together with Arda Güler in the Euros. They had, like, you should know who they are.
No, exactly.
It's just,
Mad, isn't it? And then the other prem face of the week is Atalanta against Real Madrid in the Champions League. The penalty that Atalanta got at half time from Kolasinac, where he was running through into the penalty area here and he got tripped by Tchouaméni for Real Madrid.
yeah.
Now, McManaman went on a big tirade at half time. It was never a penalty. He's dived. He's never a penalty. Like, they showed the replay to him in the studio, but they showed it from all angles because some of the front angles, aren't that clear. But when you see the angle
Yeah, it's a clear penalty.
where you actually see clearly that Tchouaméni clips one of the feet of Kolasinac as he's running in, and that foot that he clipped then hits Kolasinac's other foot and it trips him over. It's absolutely clear, so clear contact. It's unlucky. It's very unlucky.
It's still a
And it's only a little
contact.
clip, but if you clip someone's heel onto their other heel and tip them over, it's a clear penalty. But you can see it clearly. He see, like, they show it to him in the studio. And they said, "Well, let's have a look at this." And Rio Ferdinand's next to him, and he says what any like person with functioning eyes would say, which is it's unlucky, but it's a penalty. He clipped him. He doubles down and says it's never a penalty. He's dived, and it's just like, I mean,
some people are
unbelievable.
immunized to facts and reality, and it's like it doesn't matter. You just show them objective facts, and they're just going to be defiant, and yeah, that's all I got to say. He's been immunized to. Didn't like reality, so he just denies it.
It's
I mean, it's
unbelievable,
clear.
isn't it?
It's not even remotely, controversial decision. That it's just get
No,
over it.
It's not. Serie Ass of the week.
Yeah, I think it's got to be like One Football.
So One Football, who are the Serie A rights holders in the
God.
UK, just bear in mind they're supposed to be, promoting Serie A. They're supposed to be, building Serie A up because they want to sell their product, and they've got a duty to the league as well to try and build up the product of Serie A. So Juventus beat Man City, and they put out a post on social media: Juventus 2, Man City 0. Let that sink in, with a shocked emoji. And it's just unbelievable. You know, they're supposed to be promoting the league, and they're posting it like Juventus are a farmers team in a farmers league, and you know they're supposed to be boosting the image of Serie A,
No,
celebrating Serie A,
no.
not belittling it.
Let's interaction farm for 16-year-old Premfaces who think that Ollie Watkins is the greatest striker on earth.
It's
and
just,
Cole
it's
Palmer's
just,
the
it
greatest
just
midfielder.
again repeat
It's
myself
just-
all the time. I moan about this all the time, but the marketing of Serie A, and this isn't even Italian marketing. This is One Football.
Yeah, but they don't care.
No,
They don't
they
give a
don't
shit
care.
about it.
No, I know they don't.
They've just bought a right because it's that they felt was within their budget to boost their app and their subscription service, and they don't really care.
That's exactly it. And I know people that have spoken to them and that have actually confirmed that is exactly the only reason why they bought Serie A. Not that you
They
needed
don't
it.
care.
Not that you needed it confirmed. It's obvious. But
Yeah, it's obvious for anyone
they've
to
said
see.
we don't care about Serie A. We're not going to do anything. It's just about us boosting our
Of
subscribers.
course they do. Of course they are, and they're going to do that. They don't care. But the thing is, I can't even blame them. Why should they care when the league doesn't care?
No, but that's it. The league.
When you don't protect your brand, why should others protect it?
No, you're spot on. I'm 100% in agreement with you, which is why when the league makes the decisions, and that woman Ana Guarnerio
No.
makes the decision to
The
sell
bane of your existence,
to
Carlo.
sell the TV rights, you should be selling it to organisations that are going to promote and boost the league, because that's how you grow the league. You sell it to organisations like One Football that don't care. Well, what ends up happening is that the league gets smaller and smaller, and the right cycle that comes on, that price goes down because One Football have done no job at all in promoting the league. And when they
I also saw that
when they put out posts like this belittling the league, that's creating an image to all the people that are watching that could be potential consumers that, well, Serie A is a farmers league. You know, why should we pay to watch Serie A?
And now the Premier League is moving towards what I've been banging on about for years: the Netflix model. They're moving, taking steps in that direction. And once they do it, and once they market it, and once it goes live, then that's it. That's it. Like when they cut out the middleman and go directly to the consumer via a subscription model, and if they can make it work and not F it up like others with who shall remain nameless, read between the lines, the zone in Italy. But if they can sort that out, and market it properly, which I'm sure they will, and also resolve it technically and produce it in-house and do all the things that the Premier League do so well, then that's it. They will have secured their dominance of world football for at least a generation. You know, there was a window, the others didn't take it. Instead, they give it to others, and you know, they don't care about their product. So why should others care?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's leave it at that. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll be back in the week. We're hoping to have an interview for you this week, and we'll also have the Q&A for sure as well. But until next time, ciao, ciao.